Hello, and welcome to SAUSD Arts Forward, a segment of Downtown Santa Ana's virtual art walk. My name is Sabrina Skeels, and I am K-12 Visual and Performing Arts Curriculum Specialist for Santa Ana Unified School District. I'm here to set up some context for our SAUSD Arts Forward segment that you'll be watching tonight. Last month, we had a wonderful virtual festival known as Boca de Oro. And I'm going to be setting up an opportunity for you to watch one of our feature segments in our special programming we have for you. Bogue de Oro was a wonderful event in years past. We've always had it in person in downtown Santa Ana, and this year we pivoted to a virtual environment due to the pandemic. But we had so many great segments featuring the wonderful work of our students, our teachers, all of our arts programs in our district. We would like for you to take a look at this wonderful segment that we have to highlight to just further provide access to all of the great opportunities that our students and staff have through the arts in our district. So please enjoy.
Greetings. We're so excited that you're here to join us in this session of Boca de Oro, which is actually the first Saturday of the month and technically Art Walk. With us, we have the amazing Stephen Ramirez, who is a teacher at Century High School. And we have a panel of wonderful students. We have Vanessa, Kevin, and Samantha here with us. And behind the scenes, helping us do our tech is Miss Sabrina Skills, who's our K-12 Visual and Performing Arts Curriculum Specialist. So, Stephen, thanks for getting your amazing artists to join us today for this experience. And we want to learn a little bit more about you and your program. So tell us, what is it that you do at Century High School?
I started working at Central High School, I believe it's about 7 years ago. And since then, I've started with graphic design and animation. And now we've actually included web design as well and social media. So our students are learning about all these different skill sets on how to be working artists. But we want to also encourage their traditional art as well. They do a lot of hand drawing, they do a lot of planning, and within all of that we go digital. And this year, because of online learning, we were given the task of how do we continue to do digital in the confined spaces of our students of working online and working with web applications rather than software that needs to be downloaded on computers. So we took the Adobe off of our list of things to use because we couldn't give that to our students, and we moved to online programs like that are free and that are the equivalent of Adobe. So they have a Photoshop simulated program which is called Photopea, and they're able to manipulate just like Photoshop. And they're working in a line drawing program called Gravit that's almost the equivalent to Illustrator, and they're able to do the same things. And this is something that we're going to take on forward when we return back into the classroom, because now the students can actually work on their homework at home and not have to be dependent on the programs in the classroom. So,
Absolutely.
so this is a great win for us. We can see that the creativity hasn't stopped, and they're able to continue to do things and work with the tools that are in front of them. Drawing right now, it can be drawing on a paper bag. Can be drawing on line paper. Right now, Christmas just passed, so we have students drawing on wrapping paper on the insides, and getting a cereal box and opening it up and then drawing on there, and having the different textures of the materials that they're using from that has helped them with their artwork, and it allows them to be creative in different ways. This is one of the things that we want to make sure that the students are still being able to use their skills at home and are encouraged to be creative.
What you're reminding me about is that one of our hashtags in our SAUSD Arts social media is creativity is not optional. And through the pandemic, we recognize that creativity is not canceled. Thank you for reminding us about that and for keeping our kids fresh, because those are the capacities that industries are looking for, whether they're artists or not.
Yeah.
And speaking of industry, you're an industry professional. What's your background? And tell us about how you ended up here in teaching our kids.
I was fortunate enough to get a degree in advertising and communications. Back in the olden days, there was no graphic design major. There was no degree in graphic designs. It was never even it wasn't even a thing. I was going to school when these programs began and were made. I was fortunate enough to work for a publishing company, and I was fortunate enough to actually work my way up to the head designer and working with national accounts that would range between 45 and 55 million dollars a year, meeting with people and working in that realm. And I was the only one doing that out of 500 artists. I was the only one working in that area directly with the clients, directly with the national accounts, directly with the president of the company. So when you have 500 artists and you have one guy who's the main guy at the top, and the economy hits, they get rid of the one person who's at the top of the list, and they, which was fortunate because I was let go along with about two or three other people who were the only one doing that job within our company. And that was the first time the economy hit and we let go of a few people. I quickly got a teaching job, and within 2 months they asked me back because they started losing accounts. And I worked both jobs for a while, and then I really fell in love with my teaching job, and then left. And unfortunately, within a year or two, they let go the entire art department of 500 artists. I was fortunate to be let go on my own so that I can go find my teaching job. I couldn't imagine competing with 500 other artists at that time. Uh,
Yeah.
so um, but I've had a really blessed career. And when I started teaching and when I came to Century, my student asked, I was telling them, go to college, get your bachelor's, get your master's, get your doctorate. And they're all like, well, do you have your bachelor's? I'm like, yeah, I do. I'm like, do you have your master's? I'm like, I never thought of it. They're like, well, you should do that. So my students actually had a hand in me going back to school my first year at Century, and I got my master's in a year. So I have a master's in education. And then I did start a doctorate in educational leadership that I need to finish up right now as well.
Wow. Look at you go. And you represent the arts, media, and entertainment field,
Yes.
which is the heart of the creative economy. And we live in the US creative economy capital. So we are very fortunate to have a teacher like you who is working with our kids and preparing them to have the skills that they need to be able to access those jobs that are in the industries right here in our own backyard in Los Angeles and by extension, even our own area.
Yeah, I always tell my students that there's no need to be a starving artist anymore. There are jobs out there. And when prior to COVID, we used to go to Comic Con every year, and we used to go to WonderCon every year, so that the students could actually see what working artists look like, what they do, and actually see the fun of it all. When you go to a Comic Con or a WonderCon, you see artists there interacting with each other, having so much fun, but they're also working. And for students to see that their job could be fun, that they could play at their job and actually make a living, is something that we really need to make sure that they have a grasp of, that it's okay to be an artist now. It's not something that you're going to be penniless all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've got to change that mindset so that our kids can be able to pursue these opportunities. And we're going to explore that a little bit. I want to talk to the students and meet them and set us up, if you will, for a moment on this amazing 3D experience that you created for our audience and our students to, because they can't go to Comic Con, they can't go to WonderCon, they can't be exhibiting in real life. You've given them a context to be able to exhibit their work regardless.
About 3 years ago, when we were actually in person, we had the opportunity to showcase our work in a museum, and it's really an honor for the students to have their work in a museum. So now that we weren't able to last year and this year, I wanted to make sure that the students could see their work in a museum setting. So this is called Art Steps, and it allows you to make your own little museum of students' work, and it allows you to go in there, place students' work, frame it. It'll even have notes on there of who's done what. And I just wanted to make sure that their work was all consistently, the same size, so it can then showcase what they do, and that their work is quality work that should hang in a museum. That it's work that shows, everything from sketching to full rendered designs as well.
Wow, it's a whole range of things.
Mhm.
And so you continue to give them experiences and opportunities to see themselves in these kinds of jobs. What are you doing because you can't go to WonderCon or Comic Con right now?
What we do try to do is we try to provide them with online field trips. So currently we're participating in a labs-based setting with our different printers that we just got awarded. We're in a competition with Obey Clothing, and the Obey Clothing design is for our freshmen to showcase their skill set, and they're actually going to be working with clothing on for Obey, which is one of the Shepherd Farley, and this is
Yeah,
what a great artist, so to have that experience and to be able to work with relevant artists in our area in the industry is priceless, so something that they can hopefully take advantage of and then keep on growing with that.
that's beautiful, Stephen. You're a remarkable person, and we're so happy to have you. And it's time, I think, to speak to our student artists are here. And let's take a look at the gallery again.
Yeah, so Vanessa is one of the artists that I've been working with for the last 3 years. I've had the pleasure of having her in class. She works in several different mediums, and I've been fortunate enough to see her growth. She's participated in some of our competitions where she has won a water poster competition where she was able to then receive an iPad for her work. And the Mandela was part of the Boca de Oro from last year. She also won a district contest where she was able to showcase her artwork that was more on LGBTQ rights as well. She's a fantastic artist who actually works in different mediums and is able to then use that medium to showcase her not only her art but her voice and her point of view. So that's what
Yeah.
I really like about what Vanessa has been able to do with her artwork. And she has everything from digital, like this is a fully rendered digital piece of artwork, to sketches with pencil and color and paint. She's a well versed artist.
Well, and what's beautiful about her is she's also been one of our youth arts leaders and a voice and an advocate for arts in our district and talking about creativity is not optional.
Mhm.
She is an extraordinary artist to boot. And didn't you mention she's going to school?
She's applied to several schools, and this is what a lot of people kind of pigeonhole artists is like, oh, they're not great students. Vanessa's one of our highest ranked students at our school. She's continuously worked and maintained a high GPA within the 4.0 range. So that's and she's been applying to not only USC, but all the UCs and Cal States within the area. She's going to have a selection of schools to choose from
Yeah.
where she's going to be submitted to.
If Vanessa's back, because she I know she would love to explain about her pieces. Here's another piece in your gallery. Vanessa, are you able to speak to this one? Oh, she's gonna type.
Yeah.
So we can capture her words. And I'm sorry, this is the frustrating part about being a pandemic and the connectivity issues that we suffer that makes it a little challenging and frustrating at times to be able to share what we're trying to do and learn, right?
Yeah. And at times, students aren't available because else is happening in the home, and sometimes they don't want to show screens because of what's happening at home. Sometimes they don't want to turn on microphones because of what's happening at home. They can't control everything else around them. They do try, you know, but it's the conditions that we're in right now. So, but I do like these two pieces that Vanessa is showing digitally, because one's more of a darker piece and this one's more of a lighter piece, and how, the perspective, it isn't just a straight dead on, but this is almost like a looking down and to the side here. And I really like the way she was able to bring this in and have the colors and the light, work within that room as well.
Well, and I really wish we could hear from Vanessa. Are you there?
Hello.
Oh,
I
you're
changed
good.
my spot. Is this audio better?
Yes.
So much better.
Oh,
Yes.
incredible. Okay, because this is a lot to explain, and it's gonna
Good.
take me a million years to type it. All
Well,
right.
no, yeah, don't type. Just tell us all about
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah. All right. So the piece you're looking at right now, both of them are presents for friends. So they both got a kick out of the fact that this is in an art gallery. Both of the characters shown are actual characters that my friends own, that they have created and they have owned for several years. I've been privileged enough to be close enough to them that I have been, I guess, shared the knowledge of their stories and their characters and their personalities and, just everything all around. The first one, the darker one with the window, that character has always had a fascination with stars. And I just found it so endearing because she is a very cold, very closed off, the word wouldn't be nervous. She's a very guarded person, is my point. And it's not someone that you would expect would like something as soft as stars, Stars, constellations, star maps, the works. So both of these pictures I must preface as well. I'm a little scatterbrained because I thought I would be typing this. Both of those pictures are heavily referenced, and I will admit that 100%. I don't care because you need references to learn, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So,
That's artists. That's a common practice amongst artists.
of course. But I'm just saying it so it's not like, "Oh, wow, you built that from the ground." No, I had help. I did most of the work, but I did have help. So I'm just putting that out there. That picture was meant to be her working just at her desk on star maps at some obscure time of the night because she's also a workaholic. She is the type of person to stay up until 2 in the morning and not realize it's 2 in the morning. And then you see her at 6 in the morning and you think, oh, you woke up really? No, she hasn't slept. And I just found that very funny and endearing, and I wanted to draw that, and that was that friend's Christmas present. The second one, the one that Ramirez said was lighter, that is, as I said, another character. Her story is a lot more different. She is actually a deity character, except she acts nothing like it. So that character is much more tired, much more, you know what, if it happens, it happens. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm tired. I want to go to sleep. This character also gets into let's call it trouble. So she ends up waking up in places she doesn't remember going to after a long night, you know? Like I always gravitated towards that because that is such a funny thing. Because even if she is a deity, she doesn't remember. She just doesn't remember. And I found that funny. And I've always had the vivid image of her laying in a bed and waking up at some obscure time of the night and there's something happening outside with a ton of flashing lights. She doesn't know where she is. Somebody's on the floor in the doorway. She doesn't know where she is. And you know what? She's fine. She's going to figure it out. It's all right. And so I found a reference picture and I drew it because it was just such a weird thing in comparison to what she is. Because when I say the word deity or God, you think something regal, you think someone dressed in white, someone who doesn't do anything bad, somebody with their hands crossed at all times, you know. But she is the exact opposite. And I just always found that very endearing. And that's why I didn't want to type this out.
Well, we're so happy you didn't type it out because it's always a special gift when you get to hear it from the artist's mouth and the behind the scenes, because we can appreciate this work without knowing that, but it just gives such a deeper meaning and really a glimpse into your powerful problem solving, critical thinking, deep mind. So thank you for that.
Of
That
course, and
is.
if any of you have questions, including the students, I'll answer them, even if you think they're stupid. Because you know what? Sometimes stupid things happen. It'd be that way.
Can you explain what program you used and were you doing layers and all these different, how you were able to create it with the technical way?
Technically, this is the program is Autodesk Sketchbook. Yes, I used layers. I would die if I didn't. The process that I used was I took objects or groups of objects and I would render them individually. So if you zoom in on it would be the right, the darker one.
Hmm.
Both tables are on one layer, and all the line art for those tables and their objects specifically are on one layer. The colors for those objects are also on a different layer. The window, the I don't know what it's called. It's not armature.
Hmm.
The
The framing,
frames, there we go.
the
The
frame.
frames of the windows and the lights, those are on one layer, line art and color. They're
Hmm.
on separate layers. Everything else is lineless,
You were
but they
able
are
to
on
do,
separate layers.
and you,
Lineless means that there's no line art for it. It's just the colors working
yeah,
and the shading and the lighting.
and
But they're on separate layers.
the lighting was applied afterwards.
Yes, lighting and shading is applied afterwards. However, for every color layer, there is base shading. I don't know if that's an actual term, but that's what I call it. It's
Hmm.
base shading. And it's just flat color. It's just flat shading the way you would normally do it. And then there's layers with color burn, with color dodge, with whatever
Hmm.
layer adjustment works,
Do, does having, I mean, I know you're working on the computer for this. Does having the experience doing traditional help you with your computer work?
Absolutely.
Does the computer work help you with your traditional? Do you see it going both ways?
A little. When you don't forget that you can't zoom in. Yeah.
Yeah,
But of course, you code switch, you learn to code switch. So, yes, it does normally help.
very
They
good, very
lend
good.
themselves nicely to each other.
So it's just like your art is just your art. It doesn't matter what medium it's coming from.
Nope. It's going to come out the same because it's coming from me,
Hmm.
and my hand is stubborn and it will do what it wants.
Hmm.
It has a mind of its own, and I wish I could control it sometimes.
So perfect. That's what happens. I'm an artist too. So sometimes I start out with one intent and it turns out that something else comes out completely differently because that's what the work needed to be at this time. So are there any other pieces in this gallery that have your work in there, Vanessa?
Nope, those were the only two that I was able to submit.
What are you working on now?
Character design, character story, more writing,
Very good.
more designing and working at it and trying to get it right.
Remember, art isn't right. It is what it is. We make it what it is.
I know, but I mean more so right as in trying to get the picture in my head to come out onto the paper
Hmm.
because sometimes your hand won't do it and you just have to sit there
And
until
figure
it
out
does it.
a way.
Yeah, it'll come out eventually.
Okay, thank you so much, Vanessa.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We're going to
So
look
let's
at
check out some other work. Yeah.
this is Samantha's pieces, and this was just recently done, right? 2020, right?
Yeah, actually, it's really funny, the story of how I made it, because I was actually dropping off my sister in Chicago. We were actually on the road. We drove to Chicago 32 hours.
Wow.
And as we were driving, my sister and I were looking at pictures to draw because, we need something to do on the 32 hours. And when you're in the middle of Idaho, there's nothing really to look at but like cows and farm field. So we were looking for pictures, and my sister actually came across this picture, but it was all in black and white. So my sister was like, "Oh, you should draw this picture." She was actually just starting off. I inspired her to draw, and she was like, "This is too difficult for me, but like I want you to draw it." So I was like, "Okay, I can draw it." So I started drawing. I think it took like a couple hours to get just have the whole thing laid out. And I done it. It was all in black and white, finished. I was actually going to stop there, but I saw like all the designs and everything there, and I started thinking, I'm like, it would be so pretty if I colored it in. Like, it's just so perfect that it just looks like it's meant to be colored in. My sister and I were thinking of like what to color in, what to not color in. And finally, I actually came out with this picture. And it's really funny because I've never been good with colored pencils. I can draw, give me anything to draw, I will draw it. But the moment a colored pencil touches the paper, it's done for. It comes out so bad, and I've developed such a fear for colored pencils. Yeah, so I was actually pretty scared, and I had my colored pencils with me, and my sister actually dared me to color it. So I was coloring it, and I first started off with the eye, like the center of the eye, because I was like, if it fails, then I can just color it some random color, and it actually came out really nice. And then my sister was like, "Oh my god, you should like continue to color it in," because I wanted to stop there. I thought it was a miracle itself that I got the pupil of the eye so well. And my sister was like, "No, no, no, keep going, you got this." So then finally, after her pushing me for like an hour to continue drawing coloring in every single line, I finally got that picture after, I think it took me like 5 hours total. Yeah, I was so careful coloring. It probably could have took me like half the time, but I was just so scared of like messing up. I did every layer super lightly. It was such a slow process. So I feel like with knowing the whole background of like how I got this picture the way it is, I feel like it just adds so much like humor and depth. And then that came out. So
It came out really great. And what I always tell my students is like if you're worried about color, take a picture before you start coloring it. And then you can always test it in digital program. You could test the colors before you even go in. So it's
mhm.
like so that's something that, we have a lot of students who worry about color and, testing it with the computer and all the different smudges like what we've been working on this week with makeup. You can test it and see what's going to work and you can test several different colors. That's just a really good way to give it a try.
And it's really funny because actually before I actually didn't know any digital artwork sites. That's why like I'm looking at Vanessa's drawings and I just admire them so much because I've tried digital art like on my phone and like in different places, and I've never I can't I I can barely draw a stick figure. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm just looking at them and just looking at all the perspective of it all. It's literally amazing. Like I can do it on paper. Yeah, like I feel like I'm in complete control of like what I'm doing. But like the moment it goes onto like the screen, any sort of technology, I simply can't. So I really admire
It's,
her
it's a,
drawings because it was all digitally done.
but I mean, you have to use the computer as an art tool. It's just an art tool. It's going to do what you make it do. And sometimes it's using the mouse. Sometimes it's using the trackpad, and at times it's like if we can get a tablet with a pencil, you can use it the same way. Hopefully, tell us about what prompted this.
It was actually from a show that I was watching, and I just loved like the expression, the level of perspective. That was another thing that I really pushed myself on for this image, the perspective of like the hand and the arm and his like entire body behind the hand. Also a lot of pressure for myself because another thing about me, I can't draw hands. So like this, with the two main focal points of this picture being the head, the face, and the hand, if I were to mess up on the hand, there is no picture to draw. It's going in the trash. I actually really enjoyed the pressure of like these two focal points needing to be like perfect. So is this definitely took me a lot of time. I also did this in a car. I don't know. I think it's a thing with me and drawing in the car because like I don't know. It's just a really good draw. I've developed a really good drawing spot in the car. This took me such a long time, and also I feel like I really pushed myself when it came to the background. You notice that there's like a lot of like smudges in the background to give it like to make it add like perspective and depth and make it seem like live in action. That also took me a really long time to do because I was also really careful about the shading and the coloring and everything, and I also did it really lightly. Like every layer was like just a little bit darker and just a little bit darker. So it took me a lot longer than it probably should have, but you know, I was being really careful of it. I adore how this turned out. And the funny thing is that with both of these pictures, my sister saw it and I think for like 10 minutes, she was like, hey, are you sure you don't want to like give it to me? Like I can take this to college and like have it hanging on my dorm. And there was actually one picture. I'll probably show it after like everything's done. But I have one really nice picture. I think it's my best picture that I've ever drawn that I ended up giving it to her and she has it at her dorm. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed drawing this picture. The intensity of like his eyes and his hand and also the chains on it.
What I love about this too, Samantha, is that you challenged yourself. You said I can't draw hands, and then you tackled it as drawing shapes and lines and didn't look at it as the hand, and look how it came out. And just the language that you used just now, you're such an artist. You got all this language of the discipline and how you're applying that in your work. It's brilliant. And I feel the energy of this so much, even in a distance landscape, right? It's very, very spectacular work.
And it's really funny because I actually had to develop this need to push myself from like a very young age because I was really small. I was around 6 years old and I was watching The Penguins of Madagascar, the movie. I forgot what the movie's called, Madagascar. And there was a scene where Mort was like had a really cute face. And I was watching it on my TV and I literally paused the TV. I grabbed a line sheet of paper, I put it on the TV, and I started drawing the huge face, and the face covered the whole paper. And my dad actually walked into me doing this, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm tracing the character." And he's like, "Oh, why don't you like put the paper down on the table and like actually like try drawing it?" And I'm like, "I can't do that. I can't. It's easier to just put it onto the computer. I mean, not on the computer, onto the TV and just actually like trace it from there." And he's like, "Well, you probably don't understand this now, but you will later. You're gonna have to, unless you want to trace out of TVs for the rest of your life, you're gonna have to push yourself to your limit and learn how to draw from like your piece of paper, taking in the image and drawing on the piece of paper. And you'll learn like later that you'll end up being a lot more proud of your image when you know that you took the time to put the paper down and like learn how to draw just from seeing the image instead of tracing it." So I feel like that it was a really simple interaction. I actually really didn't understand the depths of it. he let me he let me finish tracing the little picture. He let me finish tracing it. But I feel like that conversation really stuck to me because I really apply that to like everything that I do. Like I push myself to my limit. Like I actually told myself I can't draw hands, so I can't draw this picture. But after like looking at it, I like broke down the picture and I finally told myself I can draw this picture. If I really take the time to do it, I can draw it. So I feel like with that, I love pushing myself to the limit and seeing what I can or cannot do.
That just gives me chills, Samantha. Between you and Vanessa, you're just such bright, beautiful women who are really powerful at such a young age. I can only imagine where you're headed as you continue to push yourself and be so powerful. Tackle things that we think we can't, but you convince yourself you can. And then you do.
Yeah. This is me having come so far from tracing off of TVs to now being able to draw this just from looking at a picture. So I definitely have to dedicate this picture to my dad just for that simple conversation. Just, yeah.
That's beautiful. So you are a senior this year too. Where are you headed? What's your future holding for you?
I actually have a scholarship with California Baptist University for soccer. So I'm going to be heading over there. I'm going to study for either a branch of engineering or accounting.
Nice. And didn't you say you had a full ride scholarship?
Mm-hmm.
So that said, you're going to accounting, or what was that?
A branch of engineering. I'm not sure what branch yet.
How do you plan to stay creative and in your artistic practice?
It's just, I always end up just getting drawn back to it. I actually stopped drawing for quite a while. Actually, it was about a year that I hadn't drawn anything. And I was actually looking back. It was actually all my drawing books were like in a corner, and I just looked at them and I started flipping through all the pages of my drawing book, and I realized like, why did I ever stop drawing? And I feel like I always just end up getting drawn back to it no matter how much time I spent off of it. I always end up coming back to it and drawing pictures like this. I just inspire myself to draw every day.
Well, you inspire us. So thank you for sharing your story. And we wish you and Vanessa so much luck in your endeavors. And we're kind of sad to see you go, but we hope you stay connected and
For
tell us
sure.
how you're doing. So we had a couple of other artists with us.
We could go through the gallery. Some of them are projects that we've had in class. Some of them are just personal pieces, like Samantha and Vanessa have done, where they just showcasing their personal drawings as well.
And I
So,
want to say too that kudos to Vanessa and Samantha for being here. And this is something that is great for your portfolio
mhm.
moving forward. So hopefully you'll keep this, preserve this amazing showcase of your work. It's very special.
So this is actually from one of our new freshmen who just transferred into our district. This is, of course, art speaks to the time. So he was just sketching out Baby Yoda. And this is a nice sketch that he thought was his best work from this past year. While we're working in Photoshop, basically Photo P, we're basically working on the face quite a bit, doing all kinds of different kinds of effects. So I am having my students learn how to draw the different elements of the face. So each week we were drawing an eye, an ear, a nose, a mouth, and now this week we're actually trying to put it all together where they're drawing the entire face. But I thought it was important that they were able to break down each individual piece and to actually look at the shading. So Eduardo did this great drawing with the shading over here with his ear. This is Stephen Hawking's, and this is a word art for a month. We've been doing word arts every month now, and what we're doing is we're taking pictures. We're getting pictures and we're getting their bios. And each month we're trying to highlight what's happening in that month. And of course, this month is Black History Month. So students are getting images of civil rights leaders, and then they're getting the words and they're combining them. So by doing this every month, it gives the students a familiarity of I know how to do this, I can do this, and we're getting better work as the months go by. But it also allows them to be culturally aware of all these different cultures and events that happen each month, because each month has a different slant to it, and we need to honor all the different cultures. And this is a way that allows the students to recognize that cultures other than theirs exist in the world, and let's find out about them, and let's find out how they contribute to our society. One of our students actually made a logo design. It was a basketball logo that he wanted to create, and he created it with lightning bolts. And that's one thing that our students have to do every year, is actually work on branding and how do they create their own logo identity. And that's Kevin's ear as well. And you're going to see different levels of work and of how students are able to then go into work. And a lot of our students are into fantasy, so they're able to make their characters and come up with special effects with their drawings. And this is another student who actually just turned in his work. And this wasn't even a project for our class, but the students are encouraged to turn in whatever they feel their artwork is speaking to them. So I don't want to limit to them saying this is what you must do. This is Marissa Schmidt. Marissa
Marissa,
Morris.
yeah.
Yeah, she was with us. And once again, last month in January was human trafficking. So a month awareness so that people can find out, and people get really personal on their month observations in the word art, because there's so many different things that they can then address, and it sparks conversations about what's going on in the world, and it's a way for our students to be culturally aware.
So, Mr. Ramirez, thank you for, we're going to continue to tour it. I just have a question. Does this gallery expand into multiple rooms, or do you rotate it and update it? Like if people wanted to come and spend some time in the gallery, how would they access it?
I have a link, and it's on my Facebook account for our school. And this is just the work that we just submitted within to be honest, the last 2 days. I asked my students, would you like to participate? Can you turn in some work? And this is what the students submitted. Quite frankly, we do this every week, where the students will write a little bio about their work, and they put it in this kind of frame format, and they do a reflection. What did I do this week? And each week, our students are working on a physical hand drawing and computer work. and then they get to choose at the end of the week which was your favorite piece of work that you created this week, and then they write a little something about it. So we could actually update this gallery weekly if we wanted to, and add additional rooms for all the different projects. And that's a great idea. It's just the time. To be honest, during COVID, teachers being at home and running the classroom, time never ends. So we're grading papers and working on projects until all day long. Until as long as the computer's on, we're doing it. So I could, add to this, but it's just one of another things of the many things that we're doing right now during this COVID time.
Yeah, work-life balance is a challenge during this time, isn't
Just a bit.
it? This reminds me of some of our mandalas last year.
We actually are doing mandalas, and there was a mandala website where the students are able to just create their mandalas, design, and then go back in and color them. And this is just a fantastic way for our students to learn how to do patterns, and basically comes out into tiles so they could see a whole floor tiled with their mandalas and their design work. It's amazing what the students do with, what you think is going to be, here's make a mandala, and then they really go all in and they get such intricate designs work here. Now, this is another mandala, but this was actually done with their name. So it's actually their first and their last name that's rotated around. So learning how to work within text, learning how to add color, and learning how to use rotational tools within a drawing program. So this one wasn't as easy as the other one, where it's basically built for you. This is what the student had to build on their own. This is Samantha's drawing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's mine. So for this drawing, I very vaguely remember. I feel like I was also in a car, but I mainly drew this one in my room. I think this was the drawing that got me back into drawing. I was actually looking for pictures and I found this one. And again, my initial thought was, I can't draw this picture because of all of the shading of the eye. I hadn't tried drawing any sort of realistic eye for actually a very long time, because I remember I tried drawing one when I was around 14, 15, and it was, to say the least, a complete fail. So I kind of avoided it for a little while, but I saw this dragon eye, and again, it was the intensity of the picture, the intensity of the eye that drew me in, and I just really wanted to draw it. So I think this one took me I think it took me like a couple hours, but it was actually the hardest part of it was getting the structure of like the curve, the structure of above the eye, how it like curved out, and to like get it really proportional and give it that really like intense structure and that really intense look that was on the picture. Because a thing about me is a lot of my pictures, like the first drawing with the eye, like I draw very smooth lines. I'm not like the type that draws very sharp, very like action looking pictures. So this one also really pushed me to like draw like the sharp curve all the way at the end, the bottom at the bottom, and how the dots spill out to the side on the three parts. That kind of pushed me to give it that really sharp look to really match the dragon's eye. That was mainly what took the 2 hours up, is mainly like the structure of everything. I thought the shading was going to be the hardest. It was actually getting the structure right to really match the theme of the whole picture.
I like the added dots. I think that really adds to it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Once again, I mean, we have all levels, and students are submitting their own work that they feel it was, you know, their own characters and own different individual voices. So you're going to get everything from hand drawings to complete digital artwork. So this was one of them. And if we go upstairs, then you can see two more rooms of just a few more pieces of artwork. I think there's four more pieces.
And you know what's fantastic is there are international renowned museums and galleries that you can go online and tour virtually like this
Mhm.
and be as if you were right there almost.
What I like about the exploring what we've been doing this past couple of weeks is that the students are surprising themselves. They're like, I've never drawn this eye before. I've never drawn this before. I was amazed that I could do something like that. So giving them the opportunity to do this, and then to surprise themselves, giving them the time to actually do the work. So we focus on 15, 20, 30 minutes of each day in class of just drawing before we go to the computer work.
Well, and thank you for creating the space and place for students to discover themselves and be surprised by themselves. Because if they didn't have these opportunities, they wouldn't really know what's running so deep in their waters. And look at all the magnitude of things that are coming up for them and through them that they're sharing and expressing their voice.
That was this week's artwork for somebody who just submitted their face portrait for this week.
Groundhog Day. I like how you chose to have the ocean be the window view.
This is a student who tried to make their photo look a little bit more old fashioned and rustic, you know, to do a little bit of effects to it as well. And this student just is into anime and she just loves creating her own characters. And this is all her own original artwork. So,
Wow.
and these students will continue drawing and drawing and drawing. And she's one of them that should have won one of our art competitions last year as well. And what I really liked is that she resubmitted her work like 3 or 4 times after we critiqued it over and over and over again, talking about color, talking about, size and positioning, talking about the just the subtle movements of the character. So this is a student that is only in the 10th grade, and we're already, going to that higher level of critiquing the work and reworking projects. And I can't wait to see what she's going to be like as a senior.
Absolutely. And what's beautiful about it, this reminds me of the Santa Ana parrots that are so prominent in our community. I hear them in the morning and in the evening. So that's just, there's so much expressive qualities about this work. And wow, you're right. We've got something to look forward to.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can interview this artist in another time as well. Well, we're coming upon the end of our hour together, and I just want to take a moment to, thank both of our guest artists, student artists, and Stephen, you as an artist and teacher, and amazing work. And thank you for sharing this with our community at large so they can see the magnitude of skill that has been developed. And we often think that art is only for the talented. And while you may have some natural aptitude and an interest, you've certainly worked very hard, as Samantha explained in her story, to acquire those skills. And Vanessa, we can tell that you've done a lot of deep work and studying to get to where you're at as well. How are you going to stay creative in your practice? What do you plan to do, Vanessa? We didn't get to ask you that.
Art has been the only passion I've ever had for my entire life, for as far as my memory goes back. So I think it's only fitting, and it would be a betrayal to myself if I didn't go into art.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, anything we can do to help and support both of you, we're here to do that. And we wish you all the best. Thank you, Mr. Ramirez.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Thanks, Sabrina, for giving us the virtual tour. And thanks to our audience for supporting and being here with us.
Thank you so much.
We'll say goodbye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you, Samantha. Thank you,
Thank
Vanessa.
you so much for the opportunity.
Oh,
Have a
yeah.
wonderful evening.
You guys deserve it.